Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So folks, for this episode here, we're going to be talking about how, sometimes you sit down and you start thinking on something. And after a while, you think a little more, you think a little deeper, and you kind of come to a potential realization, a potential revelation, if you will. And what I'm specifically referring to is the whole situation that's surrounding, Zadarius Smith and the Detroit Lions. This has been an ongoing conversation for the last couple of months because when the whole news broke about Zadarius Smith being cut, it really quite sincerely shocked and surprised a lot of Lions fans because it was just like, this move doesn't really make a whole hell of a lot of sense. And the longer that Zadarius Smith has been apart from the team, in the sense that, he's just not on the team at the moment, more and more people have been wondering, okay, why exactly has a deal not been put into place? What exactly is the holdup? What exactly is hanging everything up? And to me, I'm going to say this right now. I've always had the belief, and you guys can go back and you guys can find the videos, I've always had the belief that the Lions and Zadarius were going to eventually come back together. They were eventually going to work a deal out because there's mutual interest between both parties. Both parties want to see a deal get done. Zadarius Smith has expressed openly, very recently, and consistently that he wants to stay in Detroit. He wants to play for the Detroit Lions. And Brad Holmes and the Lions have stated that, yes, they want to bring Zadarius back. So that then has begged a lot of people the question of, okay, well, what's exactly the holdup? Why exactly has there not been progress or has there been a move towards actually making this happen? And let me tell you something, I've thought on it for a while, but there was a conversation or a topic that was brought up in one of my comments from a previous video that I just released about Zadarius Smith, and that comment really got the old cranium going. And the more I kept thinking on it, I was like, you know what? That's actually a really interesting point. It's really an interesting thought and idea. And why exactly is that the case? What exactly was that comment? The comment is that somebody suggested that the reason why Zadarius Smith and the Lions have not yet been able to, make a deal work has been about timing less than about money. And to me, at first I was like, well, that's an interesting concept, but I don't really see how that could possibly be the case. But the more I thought on it, I was like, you know what? There might actually be some merit to this conversation. And the conversation, the topic that I'm talking about here is that the person suggested in the comment that the reason why Zadarius Smith has not yet signed with the Detroit Lions is that he's not wanting to partake in the OTAs. He's trying to get around having to do that. And at first I thought, man, that seems to be a little bit, kind of like immature for a player to specifically state, no, I don't want to sign with somebody until after OTAs are done because they just don't want to do that. But the more I kept thinking about it, the more it made sense to me. And I'm not saying anything negatively about Zadarius Smith, not at all. But rather, I'm talking about the attitude at large when it comes to players in the NFL, particularly older players in the NFL. A lot of players, and I've heard it from, multiple ones, whenever they're asked about OTAs and they're asked about this, that, or the other thing, when it comes to the OTA periods, they kind of have what I would like to call a bit of a disdain for the OTAs. And it's because it's like you're sitting in meetings, you're going outside, you're doing all these drills that for the most part, most of them don't think are, kind of important because for them, the real go of everything is when training camp starts. Some might be willing to play around with the idea of coming in for minicamp, mandatory minicamp, but for most, it's like OTAs are considered a voluntary kind of thing. It's like, okay, once we actually get to the mandatory stuff, that's when things are more an actual, okay, yeah, have to be there. This stuff is important. But there's a reason why for some people they look at OTAs and it's like, well, it's not that important. I shouldn't have to go there because it's a voluntary thing. But again, as I'm just going to tell you this right now, just because something is voluntary does not necessarily mean that, oh yeah, you get to choose whether or not you show up. Because for some people, it's like, if you choose not to show up and it's voluntary, you'd better have a pretty damn good reason as to why you're not there. Just simply saying, well, I don't want to be there, that's not exactly a good reason. Or, hey, you know what? I don't want to be there and risk injury. Or I don't want to be there and, add yet something else that's going to put wear and tear on my body. So for a lot of people, at least from what I'm gathering, at least from what I am perceiving, is that the OTAs for a lot of people are something that they're not too particularly enthralled with about actually participating in. But the way I looked at it with Zadarius Smith is I'm like, okay, this is a guy that's 32 years old. He's been a veteran for, at least 10 years in the NFL. What real gain does he get from being actually at the OTAs? Other than the fact of actually just being with the team, kind of reconnecting with people, not really a whole hell of a lot. Now, in this case with the Lions OTAs this year, the fact that you have a new defensive coordinator, then yeah, there would be a lot more value in that. But again, the value I think is kind of a little bit more minimalized because of the fact that, well, it's Kelvin Shepard. Kelvin Shepard is going to pretty much run the defense the exact same way that Aaron Glenn did. He might change a couple things up here or there, but the same type of scheme, the same type of prep, the same kind of idea of what the defense is, it's probably not going to change. So even for a guy like Zadarius Smith, it's like, hey, you know what? If I actually get the chance to rest, recuperate, make sure my body is in a better position for the team once I actually come back, then that I think would be beneficial to him. Now, why exactly do I think this? The reason why, and I'm actually going to post a clip here really quickly. It's a really short clip, but shortly after Zadarius Smith's comment was released as far as what he said to USA Today about how he wants to continue his career in Detroit, a small clip was posted, and this is what Zadarius Smith had to say.
Well, you signing that contract with the Lions? Soon. Okay, that's all I need to hear.
So, very short clip, but it's a very straightforward question. It's a very straightforward answer. Guy asked Zadarius Smith, hey, when are you signing that contract with the Detroit Lions? Zadarius Smith literally turns to him mid-walk and continues walking and smiles and says, soon. Soon. So, okay, here, let's understand exactly what that response says. That response says that, hey, we have a deal structure in place. There is something in place already. But we're waiting for something. We're waiting for something else for the other shoe to drop. Because I'm not going to say Zadarius Smith is a liar. I have no reason to say he's a liar. So if he says that he's getting ready to sign a contract soon with the Detroit Lions, I'm 100% inclined to believe him. But then it brings me back to the question. Okay, you said soon, but why is it soon? Why is it not right now? If there's a deal structure that's already primarily in place, what is stopping you or stopping the Lions from getting the deal done? That then brings me back to what I was just saying as far as the comment that a fan left me as far as him trying to avoid the OTA periods or him trying to wait until, mandatory minicamp, training camp, whatever the case might be. And to me, this makes sense because, again, you're talking about a guy who's been doing this now for a number of years. This is a guy that clearly is still very much in shape, clearly still very much in football shape. This guy is a very well-respected veteran. He's clearly liked by the locker room in Detroit. The coaches like him. He likes the team. So, and again, we've heard coaches say this before. They'll be like, listen, if a player comes to me and they actually have a legit reason as to why they don't feel like they should do something, then you know what? The coaches will respect that. Because we've seen players in the past sit out OTAs, and it's like, listen, does that really impact their ability to play the game of football? Does that really impact their ability to connect with the team? No, it doesn't. Being actually there for the mandatory stuff, mandatory mini camps, training camp, making sure you're there for when it actually matters. And I'm not saying the OTAs don't matter, but for a player like Zadarius Smith, it's not going to matter as much. So for me, the more I thought about this particular reason, the more I was like, you know what? There might actually be some validity to the idea. Now, I'm not saying that's always been the reason. I'm not saying that that's the total reason. I'm sure on some level there was also a conversation that had to be had about money. Because, again, the reason why Brad Holmes stated that the Lions cut Zadarius Smith in the first place was because they felt that he was getting too much money. They felt that they didn't have enough money at the time to support him being on the roster. So obviously there had to be a little bit of a discussion. There had to be a little bit of meeting of the minds to try and figure out, okay, what is an appropriate contract that has both parties still happy and wanting to move forward? So to me, I'm like, okay, there is a good possibility that, yes, the finances were probably some of the reason why they're involved. But as Zadarius Smith just clearly demonstrated with that little clip that I put in, he's ready to sign the contract. He's saying, yeah, it's going to happen soon. So it's like, okay, here. If he's saying it's going to happen soon, that pretty much means he's already made up his mind. And that already means that the Lions have something in place. So now it's just okay, now we have a timing factor here. And when you start actually putting two and two together here, for a player like Za'Darius Smith, who's trying to make sure he's in, he's in prime condition, he's in tip-top shape, not risking himself to injury, especially when injury was such a prevalent issue last year with the team, it kind of actually makes sense. Now, some people I know might say, well, that's just being lazy, that's not being a hard worker, that's not doing what Dan Campbell and the grit mindset is all about. Let's understand something here. If that was truly how the Lions felt, there is no way in hell they would continue to have conversations with Zadarius Smith. If that's what they truly felt that Zadarius Smith was all about, that he was lazy, he wasn't, actually motivated to work, if he wasn't actually going to put in the hard work, they would have stopped any conversations long ago. If it's actually about preserving his body, making sure he's as healthy as possible for the rigors of the long season ahead, then I guarantee you, Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes would understand that, because they're going to realize that, hey, the older you get, the more difficult it is to continue to play at a high level. So, hey, it's like, you know what? If you continue to stay in football shape, even while you're apart from the team and missing OTAs, that's fine. This was a guy that was with us last year for half of a season. He knows how the team operates. He knows what the coaches expect of him, and the coaches know what to expect, likewise, from him. It's a symbiotic relationship where both sides know exactly what the other is expecting from the other, and they know exactly what they're going to get from the other person. That's why, for me, this makes total sense as the revealing reason as to why probably, Zadarius Smith has not signed yet. He's trying to make sure he's putting himself in the best possible condition to be ready to join the team and just say, hey, you know what? I hit the ground running. And again, for me, it's a benefiting situation for both the Lions and Zadarius Smith. It's like, okay, for the Lions, getting Zadarius Smith at his peak condition and also peak health means that's one less thing you have to worry about. But the Lions also get something from Zadarius Smith, because once they bring him in, okay, again, like I've said earlier, you're now going to have another person to add to that very deadly rotation of edge rushers with Hutch, hasnt, and Davenport. And again, that's also contingent upon Davenport staying healthy, because I've said it before and I'll say it again. When Davenport is a healthy player, he is impactful. He is going to make a difference. But the issue has been about him being seldom healthy. Well, you bring in Zadarius Smith, that's less wear and tear that you now have to worry about putting on Davenport. It means less wear and tear on everybody. But it also means that Zadarius Smith can pass along knowledge to the rest of those guys. Because, yeah, even though Davenport right now is the most seasoned guy that we have on the team, he's not as seasoned as Zadarius. He's not as good as Zadarius. He's still good, but just not as good. So Zadarius could mentor the rest of them. He could pass along knowledge. He could help bring them up, especially hasnt. Hasnt has all the energy in the world. He's like a freaking AA, Energizer Bunny freaking battery. But he needs some direction. He needs some people to kind of, mentor and mold him in the right direction. So it would benefit the Lions in that way as well. But it also benefits Zadarius Smith, because it's like, hey, I have a team that understands me. I have a team that respects me. I have a team that's willing to work with me. And at the same time, I have a team that is probably in one of the best positions to still go and win a Super Bowl this year. So it's a relationship, it's a situation that benefits everybody. And that's why, to me, it's like, hey, It could really be that simple. It might not be that the Lions were trying to play hardball or Za'Darius is trying to play hardball. It could be just simply a matter of timing. And if it's that simple, then you know what? When the time is right, the contract will be signed. Zadarius will come back. He will don the Honolulu blue and silver again. Now, whether or not he wears 99 again, I don't know. He's going to have to worry about trying to get that number back from, freaking Broderick Martin. But I'm pretty sure Broderick Martin's not going to have that big of an issue giving up the number because, well, why would you do that to a guy that's clearly your, how should I put this? The guy that's more experienced and is also considered a mentor of the team. You're not going to tell him no. And I'm pretty sure Zadarius Smith would make it worth his while just to swap the damn jersey number. Just saying. But anyway, folks, I just wanted to get this out there because I've been stewing on it all day and actually for the last day or two ever since, I kind of put the whole thought to my head. And it's like, you know what? This actually has some validity. I want to talk about it really quickly. So I've done that, so I'm going to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do one of these three things, like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you subscribed in the past and forgot to do so at the time, I want to highly encourage y'all, please, to make sure you hit that like button, that subscribe button, but also, more importantly, make sure you hit that bell notification icon so you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Also want to encourage y'all to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. And with that, I hope this content was able to maybe give you guys a different perspective, maybe open your eyes to something you hadn't thought about, or maybe give some validity to something you had thought about but thought maybe that's not the case. And as always, I hope you all have something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.